She vanished after the proposal. Then he found her in an old surveillance tape. The night Jordan Avery proposed, the ocean looked endless, black waves kissing the edge of the cliff as Liana said yes through tears and laughter. 3 days later, she vanished without a sound. Everyone said she'd gotten cold feet, that she regretted saying yes. Even the police shrugged it off. It happens, they told him. But Jordan couldn't let it go. Not when her wallet was still in the cottage. Not when he found her engagement ring tucked inside her running shoe. Not when an old, dust-covered surveillance tape from a harbor seafood shop revealed her being forced into a van at 3:42 a.m. And in the corner of the footage, a man stood watching. A man Jordan thought they'd left behind in another life. The fog in Astoria was thicker than usual that morning. A heavy, smothering gray that swallowed the streets whole and muffled every sound like cotton pressed against the world. Jordan Avery stood alone on the back deck of the seaside cottage he and Liana had rented, his coffee untouched and cold in his hand. Her toothbrush was still in the bathroom, her sweater still draped over the couch. Her engagement ring sat silently in her running shoe by the door, like a secret waiting to be found. No one in this town was treating her disappearance like a crime, not even the detective assigned to the case. She probably left on her own, Detective Farrow had said with tired eyes and too much certainty. You'd be surprised how often people change their minds after something big like a proposal. But Liana didn't just change her mind. She vanished. Jordan had replayed their final evening 1,000 times. Dinner at the Lighthouse Bistro, a walk along the shore. She'd been quiet, yes, distant even, but not scared, not cold. He remembered the way she touched his arm during dessert, how she whispered, "We're really doing this, huh?" with a nervous smile. It wasn't until the next morning, when the sun burned through the fog and revealed an empty bed, that he realized something was deeply wrong. He had called her phone. No answer. He had driven every coastal road, checked every shop, every hiking trail. Nothing. And now, 5 days later, the police had already started pulling back. No signs of foul play, no witnesses, no body. Only Jordan believed something had happened to her. Something dark. Something that hadn't begun on the night she disappeared, but long before. A sharp knock on the cottage door pulled him back to the present. He opened it to find a hunched old man with a delivery jacket and a voice rough as gravel. "You the one asking around about surveillance footage by the harbor?" Jordan nodded. The man reached into his coat, pulled out a plastic evidence bag with a VHS tape inside. "Was cleaning out the old bait shop. Found this in the back room. Don't got a player no more, but maybe you do." Jordan's heart kicked against his ribs. The date on the label, October 12th, the night Liana vanished. The old VCR wheezed like it hadn't drawn breath in years. Jordan had dug it out of a box in the storage closet, brushed off dust thick as ash, and prayed to whatever gods governed outdated technology that it would work. He slid the tape in slowly, reverently. It clunked into place like a puzzle piece finding home. Then he hit play. The grainy footage blinked to life. Timestamp, October 12th, 3:35 a.m. Angle, a fixed camera above the harbor's fish market, angled toward the lot between the seafood supply dock and an old bait shop. Jordan leaned in. The footage looked empty at first, fog rolling through the frame like ghosts. Then, movement. At 3:41 a.m., a figure entered from the left, small, hurried. A woman. She wore leggings and a zip-up hoodie, hair tied back. Her walk was fast, anxious. She kept glancing behind her shoulder. Jordan's breath caught in his throat. Even through the fuzz, he knew that gait, the tension in her shoulders. That was Liana. She paused near the side of the bait shop, looked around, took a few steps forward, and then froze. From the far end of the frame, headlights appeared. A black van, slow and deliberate, glided into view and stopped beside her. Jordan felt cold all over. Liana took a cautious step back. The side door of the van slid open. A man stepped out, tall, heavy coat, hat pulled low. He didn't rush her, just opened his hands in some kind of gesture, like he was offering peace. Liana hesitated. Then he pulled something from his pocket. Jordan couldn't see what it was. But Liana's body language shifted. She recoiled, took another step back. And that's when it happened. A second man, this one unseen until now, darted out from behind the building, grabbed her from behind. Liana struggled, kicked, tried to scream. The first man moved fast, pressing something, a rag, over her face. She went limp. They shoved her into the van. It took less than 10 seconds. The door slammed shut. The van reversed, turned out of frame, and disappeared into the fog. Jordan sat there, paralyzed. He rewound the tape, hands trembling, and played it again, slower, frame by frame. And then, at the very edge of the screen, just before the van pulled away, he saw something else. A figure, half lit by the distant glow of a dock light, watching, still as a statue, arms folded, face mostly hidden, but not to Jordan. He knew that posture, that stance. Marcus Thorne, Liana's ex-fiancé, the man who had once charmed an entire company before being quietly forced out for financial manipulation and abusive behavior. The man Liana never spoke of in full detail, only that he had ruined too many things in her life, that she wanted him out of it for good. The man who had sent her a necklace for her birthday last year even after she'd changed her address. The one with a note inside. "You're still mine." Jordan shot up from the couch, the tape still playing in the background like a bad dream on repeat. He pulled out his laptop and searched again. Marcus Thorne, Portland. Most of the results were years old. He'd gone quiet after the scandal. No social media, no new company. But there it was, buried deep in an old local article. Real estate tech entrepreneur Marcus Thorne liquidates remaining Oregon holdings. A single line in the body of the article mentioned his last known property, an old fishing warehouse in Astoria, just 6 miles south of the harbor, right along the coast. Jordan grabbed his jacket. A storm of rage, fear, and grim certainty swelled inside him. He dialed Detective Farrow's number. It rang, and rang. No answer. Of course. The man had written Liana off before day 2. Jordan slipped the tape into his backpack, locked the cottage behind him, and stepped out into the fog. It clung to him like hands. As he drove, the road curved sharply along the coastline, the ocean murmuring below, barely visible through the mist. He kept checking the address on the article, heart pounding in time with the wipers thudding across the windshield. The warehouse sat at the edge of a gravel access road, crumbling roof, a rusted loading dock, and old floodlights that flickered half-heartedly. A chain-link fence surrounded it, but the gate hung crooked on its hinges. He parked a block away and approached on foot. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He stopped cold, answered. Silence on the other end. Then, a breath. "Jordan," a voice whispered. His knees almost gave out. "Liana?" Another breath. A hitch. "I don't have long." "Oh my God. Liana, where are you? I saw the tape. I saw the van. Are you hurt?" "No, but I can't say much. He's watching, always watching. I don't know how long I have before he..." Click. The line went dead. Jordan stared at his phone, his heart hammering. She was alive, she was close, and she was terrified. The wind off the ocean howled louder as Jordan pocketed his phone and stared at the dark silhouette of the warehouse ahead. It looked dead, abandoned, but he knew now that looks lied. Liana's voice still echoed in his ear, brittle, rushed, cut off before she could even finish her warning. "He's watching, always watching. Jordan moved toward the fence. The rusted gate swung inward with a creak so loud it made him flinch. He paused, listening. Nothing but the wind and the rhythmic crash of waves beyond the hill. No signs of cameras. No lights on in the building. Still, he had a sick feeling he was already being watched. The warehouse loomed larger as he approached. The side entrance was chained but not locked. With enough force, he could break the loop free. He took a deep breath and pulled hard. The chain snapped from the brittle metal bracket with a clang that echoed off the steel walls like a shot. Jordan froze. Waited. Still no movement. He slipped inside. The air was cold and damp, thick with mildew and the faint scent of oil and salt. Faint red emergency lights pulsed every 20 feet along the back wall, bathing everything in a bloody glow. Storage racks and overturned crates lined the walls, casting jagged shadows. Jordan moved slowly, phone flashlight off, trusting his eyes to adjust. Somewhere in here, Liana had been kept, or maybe was still here. A shuffle, soft, barely audible, but there. Jordan dropped into a crouch behind a stack of boxes. He listened again, heartbeat in his ears, breath shallow. The sound came again. Footsteps. Careful ones. Then a voice. "You shouldn't have come, Jordan." He turned toward it, toward the darkened hallway beyond the office door, and stepped out from cover. "Marcus," he said, his voice flat. "Where is she?" The man who stepped into view hadn't changed much. Older, thinner, but still smug. Neatly styled hair, black coat, calm, condescending eyes. "You're not the first man to think love is enough to protect her," Marcus said. "But you are the most stubborn." "I saw the tape." Marcus shrugged. "So, what will you do with it? Give it to the local police? Astoria is not exactly the FBI, and they've already been told your little girlfriend just walked out." "You drugged her. Kidnapped her." "Not legally. She's here by choice." Jordan stepped closer. "That's a lie." Marcus smiled. "Is it?" Jordan's hand was in his jacket pocket, fingers wrapped tight around his phone. One press and the recording app would start. He didn't know if it would hold up in court, but it might be enough to rattle the man. "You stalked her. You sent that necklace. You tracked her." Jordan's voice rose. "You're obsessed, and you're scared. You know what she knows." Marcus's face flickered, the first crack in the mask. "I've built an empire from nothing," Marcus said slowly. "Liana was always smart, but she didn't know when to leave well enough alone. She started asking questions. I warned her. I told her to stay quiet." "You mean about the shell companies? The overseas launders? The fake charities?" Marcus laughed softly. "She told you more than I thought. Enough to bury you." "Then you should have stayed in Portland," Marcus said, voice cold. "Because what happens next isn't something you walk away from." Suddenly, behind Jordan, movement. A noise. Too late to turn. Something struck the side of his head. The world flipped sideways. He hit the ground hard, vision flashing white. The last thing he heard before darkness took him was Marcus's voice, low and gleeful. "Let's see if she's still willing to die for you." When he came to, everything hurt. The floor was cold beneath him. His wrists were bound with zip ties, rough plastic cutting into his skin. His head throbbed with a steady pulse. A shadow moved nearby. Then he heard her. "Jordan?" "Liana." His head turned weakly toward her voice. She was crouched across the room in a makeshift holding cell. Nothing but a caged section of the warehouse fenced off with rebar and heavy mesh. Her face was pale, lips split, but her eyes lit up with disbelief and fury when she saw him. "Oh my God," she whispered. "What are you doing here?" "I found the tape." he said, voice thick with pain. "I had to find you." "Why didn't you call the police?" "I did," he rasped. "They don't care." Liana's jaw clenched. "He has people in the department. He bought silence. That's why I had to go with them. He said if I ran, he'd hurt my family." Jordan tried to move. The pain lanced up his side. She crawled to the edge of the cage, reached through to touch his arm. "We have to get out," she said. Jordan managed a grim smile. "Was hoping you'd say that." Liana's hand wrapped around Jordan's forearm, squeezing it tightly through the mesh fence. Her fingers were cold and trembling, but her eyes were fire. He hadn't seen that look in her since the day she left her old firm in Portland, after she'd exposed a manager for falsifying investment data. That same fearless burn was back now, sharpened by fear but lit by defiance. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered, but her voice cracked. "But thank God you did." Jordan shifted, wincing from the ache in his ribs. "Yeah, well, not exactly how I pictured the reunion." He nodded toward the cage's makeshift padlock. "Any ideas?" "I've been working on the bolts," she said, glancing toward the rusted hinges. "But I don't have tools. It's secure. For now." She hesitated. "There's a guy, young. Marcus calls him Theo. Not like the others. I think he's scared." "Scared of Marcus?" "No," she said. "Scared of what they're doing." Jordan nodded slowly, mental gears turning despite the pounding in his head. "We need to find the crack. If there's one weak link, that's where we break the chain." Footsteps echoed from down the hallway, the steel-toed rhythm of Marcus's enforcers. Liana backed away from the fence, returning to the small cot in the corner like she hadn't moved. Jordan closed his eyes just as the door creaked open. "Rise and shine, Romeo," a deep voice sneered. Rough hands yanked him upright, dragging him across the warehouse floor. He didn't fight. Not yet. Let them believe he was still dazed, still broken. They brought him to the far end of the warehouse, to what had once been a shipping office. Now it served as Marcus Thorne's personal war room. The walls were plastered with maps of the Oregon coast, property ledgers, encrypted USB drives clipped to wire racks. A sleek laptop sat open on the table, displaying offshore bank transfers and ghost accounts. Marcus was leaning over the desk, sipping a glass of red wine like he was on vacation. He didn't look up. "I expected a little more subtlety from you, Jordan," he said. "Instead, I get a wounded hero charging in like this is some paperback thriller." Jordan said nothing. Marcus finally turned, raising his glass in a mock salute. "You're lucky. If Liana weren't so complicated, you'd already be in the Columbia River, weighted down with scrap iron." "You're not going to kill me," Jordan said hoarsely. "Because that would be messy. Public. You need to keep her quiet. And I'm the leverage now." Marcus tilted his head, amused. "You do catch on quickly." He took a slow sip. "But let me correct you on one point. I don't need anything anymore. My exit plan is in motion. Funds transferred. Properties sold. By tomorrow night, I'll be somewhere no extradition treaty can touch." Jordan clenched his fists behind his back, the plastic restraints biting in. Marcus smiled. "Don't worry. I'll leave you alive, for now. But when the clock runs out and the boat leaves tonight, Liana goes with me. You stay." He motioned to the guard. "Take him back, and if he tries anything heroic again, break his legs." The guard, tall, tattooed, silent, pulled Jordan out with a grip like steel. As they passed the hallway back to the cages, Jordan caught sight of another figure trailing behind them. Theo, barely in his 20s, nervous posture, clean cut, but trying too hard to look tough in combat boots and a black hoodie. His eyes flicked toward Jordan, then away. When the guard shoved Jordan back onto the floor of the storage area, Theo lingered a second too long. Jordan seized the moment. "Hey," he said, just loud enough to reach him. "Theo, right?" The young man stiffened. "I know you don't want this," Jordan whispered. "You didn't sign up for kidnapping, for trafficking." Theo's jaw tightened, but he didn't move. "I saw her," Jordan continued. "I saw what Marcus did. You think he'll protect you when this all goes to hell?" Still nothing. But Theo didn't walk away either. Jordan leaned in closer. "You want to fix this? You help us, tonight, before he puts her on that boat." Theo looked back toward the hallway. The guard was gone. For a second, it was just them. Then Theo turned and walked away. Jordan dropped back, heart pounding, but he saw it in the kid's face. Hesitation, doubt, maybe even shame. That was the crack. And all Jordan needed was one more opening. That night, the warehouse changed. The buzz of activity picked up. Someone was testing the power generator near the dock entrance. Jordan could hear distant voices. Marcus giving orders, cell phones ringing, the hum of a plan speeding toward its final act. From her cell, Liana whispered through the fence. "They're getting ready. The yacht's docked. It's real. He's leaving tonight." "Then so are we," Jordan whispered back. "I just need 5 minutes. With Theo." And just after midnight, as rain began to patter against the corrugated roof, Theo slipped back into the room. No words, just a small utility knife in one hand, and a flashlight in the other. He crouched beside Jordan, eyes wide, breath shallow. "Cut me loose," Jordan whispered. Theo looked toward the hallway, and then, with a single motion, sliced through the restraint. Theo didn't say a word as he cut through the zip ties. His hands trembled slightly, but his grip was steady, practiced. He dropped the broken plastic bindings beside Jordan like they were something cursed. "Cameras?" Jordan whispered. Theo nodded once. Back corner of the warehouse. Only 2 are live. No audio. "Do they know you're here?" "I'm supposed to be doing inventory." Jordan flexed his wrists, blood rushing back into his hands like fire. "Why are you helping us?" Theo hesitated. His lips parted, but it took him a full breath to speak. "I have a sister. She got caught up with a guy like Marcus last year. Took us 6 months to find her." His jaw clenched. "I should have known better." Jordan nodded, not to comfort him, but to say, "You're doing the right thing." "I need something from you," Jordan said. "We need a plan. Fast." Theo glanced toward the hallway. "They're loading the boat now. Marcus will leave as soon as the fog lifts. Maybe 2:30 a.m. That gives you 12 minutes, max." 12 minutes is enough," Jordan said. "Where are the keys to the cage?" "Office drawer. Marcus carries a spare. But no way you're getting in there without—" Jordan stood, rolling out his shoulders, voice low and decisive. "You let me worry about that." Theo looked over at Liana in the cage, who had risen and come to the mesh, eyes wide. She didn't speak, didn't dare, but her eyes locked onto Jordan's, and in them he saw what had kept him going all these days. Belief and love. Theo passed him the utility knife and flashlight. "There's a side hallway, storage wing, goes around the office and cuts into the back, less cameras. Use that." Then he added, after a beat, "When this goes wrong, and it probably will, don't tell them I helped." Jordan met his eyes. "No one will know." Theo nodded and slipped back into the shadows. Jordan didn't wait. He moved fast but quiet, hugging the metal shelving as he headed toward the far hallway. The warehouse was quieter now, the loading sounds drifting toward the dock entrance. He rounded the corner and entered the back corridor Theo had mentioned. The lights here were dim. A single bulb flickered every 10 feet. It felt like moving through a forgotten lung of a dead beast. Finally, he reached the back of Marcus's office. Through the grimy window, he saw the man himself. typing something into a sleek laptop, a drink beside him. No guards. No one else. Now. Jordan slipped inside the door. It creaked. Marcus froze. Jordan didn't hesitate. He grabbed the first object he saw, a rusted crowbar from the tool rack, and slammed it against the side of the desk. Marcus spun too late. Jordan was on him, slamming him against the filing cabinet. The glass of wine shattered, soaking paperwork. Marcus cursed, tried to swing, but Jordan was faster now, fueled by adrenaline and fury. He pinned Marcus against the wall with the crowbar across his throat. "Where are the keys?" Marcus hissed through clenched teeth. "You don't have the guts." "Try me." The man laughed, blood in his teeth. "You think she'll ever be safe, Jordan? Even if you walk out tonight, I will find her. I will wait." Jordan drove the bar into his chest, not hard enough to break ribs, just enough to steal his breath. Marcus slumped. Jordan rifled through the top drawer, ignoring the man's gasping. There, a ring of keys, one of them marked with a small red tag, C9. He snatched them, turned, and ran. Behind him, Marcus shouted. Incoherent, furious, Jordan didn't look back. He sprinted the length of the corridor, slipping through the shadows back into the storage floor. He rounded the shelving, reached the cage. Liana was there, waiting. He jammed the key in the lock. It clicked. The gate squealed open. She flung herself into his arms, and for a second nothing else mattered. "I knew you'd come," she whispered, her voice cracking. "We're not done yet," Jordan said. "They're loading the boat. We've got minutes, maybe less." Theo reappeared like a ghost, sweat beading at his temple. "Dock guards distracted. Go out the side loading ramp. Straight shot to the fence. I'll keep the back clear." Liana grabbed his hand. "Come with us." Theo shook his head. "Not tonight. But I'll leave the back open. And the footage. It's all backed up on the secondary system in the breaker room. Tell the cops. Tell them to check there." Then, he was gone. Jordan and Liana moved. Fast. They crept through the side corridor, past rows of moldy crates and rusted coils of chain. Rain had started to come down harder, drumming against the tin roof like warning drums. They reached the side door. Jordan pushed it open and stepped out into the rain-soaked gravel behind the warehouse. Freedom was 20 yards ahead, a gap in the fence. Beyond that, his car, the road. Then, a shout. "Hey!" One of the guards, the tall one, had spotted them from the dock. Gun drawn. Jordan grabbed Liana's hand. "Run!" They sprinted. Gunfire cracked behind them. Once, twice. Wild, loud, inaccurate. Jordan ducked behind the car, flung open the passenger door. Liana dove in. Jordan scrambled into the driver's seat. The engine roared to life, tires spinning in the wet gravel, and they peeled away into the fog, taillights disappearing into the rain. The tires screeched as the car rounded a bend, spraying mist and gravel into the night. Jordan gripped the wheel with white knuckles, eyes flicking between the rain-slicked road and the rearview mirror. Nothing. No headlights. No tail. Still, he didn't slow down. Liana sat beside him, barefoot, her hands braced against the dash, soaked hair plastered to her cheeks. Her chest rose and fell in sharp bursts. Neither of them spoke for a full minute. Then, "Did you get hurt?" she asked, voice hoarse. "Just my ego," Jordan muttered, easing the car back into its lane. That guard had bad aim, but good lungs. Liana gave a sharp, humorless laugh, almost a cough. The clock on the dashboard read 2:24 a.m. They had escaped, barely, but they weren't safe. Not yet. "Where are we going?" she asked. Jordan took a corner at 40, the tires skimming the shoulder. "Anywhere with cell service and an honest cop." Liana's eyes were on the glove box. "There's a burner phone in there. Theo gave it to me 2 nights ago." Jordan popped it open at a red light and grabbed the cheap plastic device. Full bars. 1 missed call. blocked number. He handed it to her. You trust him? She nodded. He slipped me food, water, whispered that Marcus was planning something bigger, but he was afraid to act. I think seeing you gave him a reason. Jordan kept driving, aiming for the higher hills toward town, where reception was more reliable and fewer warehouses lined the foggy edges of the coast. All right, he said. Here's the play. We call Pharaoh. We tell him about the footage backup, about the guards, the holding cage, everything. He won't believe us, Liana said. He's already dismissed it. He thinks I left on my own. Jordan smiled grimly. I'm not calling him to convince him. I'm calling to put it on record. So when this blows up, he can't pretend he didn't know. Liana nodded. Jordan handed her his own phone next. Try Claire. She's still in Portland, right? She won't pick up. Try anyway. Liana hesitated, then dialed. The phone rang twice. Then, Liana? Claire's voice burst through, crackling with static and panic. Where have you been? The news said you were missing. I'm okay, Liana said, voice tight. I need you to do something. Listen carefully. Jordan merged onto the main highway and glanced over as Liana detailed the location of the warehouse, Theo's name, and the location of the secondary footage backup. If anything happens to us, she finished, give all of that to the police. Or a reporter. Anyone. Jesus, Liana, what happened to you? I'll explain later. She hung up before the questions could pile up. Jordan glanced at her. You think she'll do it? She's stubborn, Liana said. Just like you. Then her eyes narrowed. She looked into the rearview mirror. Jordan? Headlights. 2 sets. Far back, but gaining. Jordan slammed his foot down. The engine screamed as the car surged forward through the fog. We need a plan, Liana said. There's a ranger station near Neocani Bluff, Jordan said. Off the grid, but with radio access. I went camping there once. It's isolated, but reachable by road. If we make it there... The headlights behind them grew larger. One car swerved, tried to overtake. Marcus, of course. Hold on, Jordan muttered. They veered off the highway onto a winding service road. The rain intensified, coming down in sheets now. The car bounced, skidded, tires barely gripping the muddy gravel. Behind them the pursuers followed, too fast, too confident. Liana leaned forward. Do we still have the utility knife? Jordan reached beneath his seat and pulled it free, handing it to her. Why? She didn't answer, just rolled down her window, braced herself against the wind, and stared at the narrow strip of forest rushing by. Then she spotted it. Here! She yelled. A turnout. Narrow. Hidden by brush. Jordan yanked the wheel hard. The car slid off the road and down a short embankment, hidden by a curtain of trees. He killed the lights. Engine still running. Liana crouched down in her seat. The other cars roared past seconds later, tail lights vanishing into the storm. Silence. Just their breathing. Then the pounding of Jordan's heart. We've got maybe a few minutes, he whispered, before they realize they lost us. Liana reached over and took his hand. Jordan turned to her, saw her there in the dark, soaked, scraped, eyes wild but alive. You came for me, she said quietly, even when it didn't make sense. I'd come for you 1,000 times, he replied, even if it broke me. She leaned in, their foreheads touched, then she pulled back, her breath still shaking. Now what? Jordan shifted into gear. Now we go to war. The road to Neocani Bluff twisted like a serpent through the hills, narrow, broken in places, flanked by cliffs and dense pine. Jordan's hands gripped the steering wheel like a lifeline as the battered rental car crawled up the incline, its headlights barely cutting through the rain. They were alone again. But not safe. Never safe. Liana sat in the passenger seat, drying her hands on an old hiking towel Jordan had found in the trunk. Her eyes flicked constantly to the side mirror, scanning the darkness behind them. "Do you think they saw us turn off?" she asked. "I think Marcus is too arrogant to check his blind spots," Jordan said. "He probably thinks we're still ahead of him, driving like hell toward the city." Liana didn't look convinced. "He'll figure it out, sooner or later. Then we need to make this count." The ranger station was barely visible through the fog. A sloped-roof cabin tucked behind a crumbling observation tower. No lights, no movement. Just the long shadow of a radio antenna vanishing into the clouds. Jordan parked beneath the canopy of trees and killed the engine. The silence was thunderous. "You ready?" he asked. Liana nodded. "Let's end this." They stepped out into the cold, mud sucking at their shoes. A wooden sign read, "Emergency Services, Radio Line 92.1 MHz, Ranger, Access Only." Jordan kicked open the warped door. The inside smelled like wet paper and pine sap. The station was one room, a small bunk, a desk stacked with outdated trail maps, and an emergency radio system bolted to the far wall. The light above the transmitter glowed faint green, still functional. Jordan moved quickly, flipping through the laminated instructions nailed to the wall beside it. Liana scanned the shelves. "There's a med kit, some bottled water, a flare gun." "Grab it," Jordan said. "If Marcus shows up, we'll light up the sky." She stuffed the flare gun into her jacket pocket. Jordan adjusted the radio frequency. Static hissed, then cleared slightly. "Hello?" he said. "This is a distress transmission from Neocani Bluff Ranger Post. We have evidence of a felony abduction, and the suspects are armed and in pursuit." More static. Then a voice. "Copy that. Identify yourself." "This is Jordan Avery. I'm with Liana Brooks. She's the woman reported missing last week. She was abducted by Marcus Thorne. We have visual evidence, backup footage, and a witness who stayed behind. We need police dispatched immediately to the Bluff station." Silence. Then the voice returned, firmer now. "We've been briefed. You need to stay put. Units are en route. ETA 35 minutes. Jordan exhaled, the first real breath in hours. "Stay inside the building," the voice added. "Do not attempt to engage the suspects. Repeat." Boom. The station windows rattled. Liana flinched. "What was that?" she whispered. Jordan moved to the window. Headlights. Too close. Too late. "They found us," he said. The shape of a black SUV loomed through the trees. Its engine idled like a beast waiting to strike. Jordan locked the door. Radio said 35 minutes. Liana held up the flare gun. "We don't have 35 minutes. Another door slammed, then voices, muffled but unmistakable. Jordan crouched beside the desk. He held up 3 fingers. 2 men. Maybe 3. Liana pressed her back to the wall beside the window, peering through the gap in the curtain. A flashlight beam swept across the yard. Marcus's voice rang out, smug and clear. "Jordan, you know how this ends. Don't drag it out." Jordan moved toward the back of the station, where a storage hatch led to a crawl space beneath the floor. "We can't stay in here." Liana looked at him, defiant. "You want to run again?" "No," he said. "I want to trap him." Jordan opened the hatch. Beneath was a narrow crawl space leading under the deck, just wide enough to move through. Liana raised an eyebrow. "You sure about this?" "No, but I'm done waiting for heroes." They slipped inside. Jordan pulled the hatch closed just as the front door exploded inward with a crash of splintering wood. Marcus entered first. He looked almost amused, eyes sweeping the room as if inspecting a painting. "She's not here," he said to someone behind him. But she was. Boots creaked on the wooden floor. Heavy steps. 2 men. One of them had a long object in his hand. A rifle from the sound of it. Jordan and Liana crawled slowly beneath them, the wood groaning with every movement. Then Liana froze. Whispers above them. One of the men, not Marcus, had stopped. "I don't like this. Too quiet." "You're paid to follow," Marcus hissed. Suddenly, something dropped, a flare gun, from Liana's jacket as she twisted. It hit the dirt floor with a soft clink. Up above, silence. Then, movement. "The hatch!" someone shouted. Jordan shoved Liana forward. "Go!" A boot slammed down above them. The hatch opened. Light flooded in. Marcus leaned in, face twisted. "Found you." Liana spun, grabbed the flare gun, aimed, and fired. Blam! Red fire burst into Marcus's chest, lighting the crawlspace like hell itself. He screamed, stumbled back, jacket burning. Jordan kicked upward, smashing the hatch into the second man's face. Gunshots cracked wild into the floorboards. Liana crawled through the exit vent under the back deck. Jordan followed, coughing smoke and dirt. They burst into the open night just as sirens echoed in the distance. Far below, headlights climbed the bluff road. Liana sprinted across the clearing behind the ranger station, her soaked sneakers slapping against wet pine needles and moss. Jordan was right behind her, breathing hard, the smoke and flare still stinging his lungs. Sirens. Real ones this time, climbing, urgent, alive with authority. Somewhere down the winding bluff road, headlights cut through the mist. "Keep moving!" Jordan shouted. "We need them to see us." Behind them, the ranger station door slammed open. Marcus stumbled out, coat still smoldering where the flare had ignited his chest. His face was red, furious, but more than that, desperate. He wasn't chasing them to finish something. He was chasing them because he knew everything was about to end. Two of his men followed, one limping, the other gripping a rifle with shaking hands. Jordan and Liana reached the edge of the hill. From there, the narrow access road curved down toward a clearing, and in that clearing, the unmistakable flash of red and blue lights. "Over here!" Liana screamed, waving both arms. "We're up here!" The police SUV jerked to a stop. 4 officers jumped out, weapons drawn. From behind, a gunshot cracked. Bark exploded near Liana's shoulder. "Down!" Jordan tackled her behind a stump as 2 officers returned fire up the hill. "Suspects armed!" one shouted. "Requesting backup now! Engaging!" A flurry of action followed, the forest erupting into shouted orders, more gunfire, boots pounding through mud. The officers fanned out, sweeping up the incline toward the ranger station. Jordan and Liana stayed down until the chaos dimmed. When the shooting stopped, one officer approached them cautiously. Hands visible, slowly. They obeyed. "We're the victims," Jordan said, voice rasping. "We called it in." Liana added, "He's inside. Marcus Thorne. He's armed, has 2 men. He kidnapped me. There's video proof." The officer nodded, speaking into his radio. "Confirmed. Suspect ID matches internal watch list. Scene secured. EMTs inbound." 2 minutes later, they were wrapped in foil blankets, seated on the tailgate of a deputy's vehicle. Jordan clutched Liana's hand like he might lose her again if he let go. Across the lot, officers pulled the suspects from the trees. Marcus last. His hands cuffed behind his back, his face smeared with blood and ash. And yet, as he was shoved into the back of a police van, he smiled. Jordan saw it. A flicker of triumph, of unfinished business. "He's not scared," Jordan murmured. Liana turned to look. Her jaw tightened. "No," she said, "because he thinks the worst is over. That if he stays silent, it'll all go away." Jordan reached into his pocket and pulled out the USB Theo had given him, wrapped tight in duct tape, but warm now from his body heat. "No," Jordan said, "because he doesn't know what we have." At the Astoria police station, everything moved fast. They were taken into separate rooms, interviewed by two different detectives. Evidence bags were logged: the flare gun, the utility knife, the burner phone. Jordan handed over the USB. "This contains backup footage," he explained. "And there's more in a secondary server inside the breaker room at the warehouse. A man named Theo helped us. He'll corroborate everything." Liana's statement mirrored his, from the moment of her abduction to the fake phone call Marcus had forced her to make. "He said he'd hurt my parents if I ran," she told the detective. "He made me say it was all a mistake, that I didn't love Jordan, that I left voluntarily." She rubbed her arms, trembling. "It wasn't my voice. Not really." The detective, a gray-haired man named Sergeant O'Connell, nodded slowly. "We've had complaints about Thorne before. Intimidation, stalking, all buried. But this? With video evidence and a witness? This might finally hold." Jordan looked up. He smiled as they took him, like he still had something left to play. O'Connell didn't flinch. "Then we burn every last secret he's got." 2 hours later, in a sealed room deep within the station's evidence lab, the USB loaded onto an encrypted workstation. The footage Theo had saved was crystal clear. Multiple camera angles, Liana's abduction, Marcus at the wedding standing in the back, staring at her like she was a possession. Even earlier footage, her walking near her old apartment, followed by the same black van. "He's been planning this for months," Jordan whispered. One frame showed Marcus inside a hidden room at the warehouse, counting stacks of foreign currency, logging passwords into an offshore server. O'Connell leaned forward. "That's more than kidnapping. That's laundering, racketeering, possibly trafficking." Liana's voice trembled. "He tracked me. He knew where I was at all times. I wore that bracelet every day. He gave it to me through a fake address. I thought it was from my mother." One of the tech officers turned. "Bracelet?" Jordan nodded. "One of the beads had a tracker in it. The forensics team in Queenstown found it days ago. They didn't know it was planted." O'Connell stood. "We need to freeze his assets. Alert the feds. This is bigger than Oregon." He turned back to Jordan. "You said Theo stayed behind?" "Yes. We'll find him. He's the key." At 6:17 a.m., as the sun rose over Astoria, casting pale light through the station windows, Jordan and Liana sat side by side on the station bench, exhausted, alive. "Do you think it's really over?" she asked, voice barely audible. Jordan looked at her, then at the hallway where Marcus had been led away. No cuffs now, just chains. "I think it's finally starting." She leaned into him, head against his shoulder. "I still want to marry you." Jordan blinked. She looked up, eyes glassy. "I said yes once. Before everything. I'm saying it again. Not because I need to feel safe, but because you are the only reason I made it out." He smiled, tired but honest. "I didn't save you," he said. She squeezed his hand. "You found me." The federal agents arrived in black SUVs just after sunrise. No sirens, no drama, just efficient silence, like a cleanup crew trained to erase rot. Jordan and Liana watched from the side window of the police station's conference room as 4 men in Navy windbreakers entered the building, each one carrying a laptop case or evidence bag. The Department of Justice logo gleamed on their backs like a warning. Now it's official. Detective O'Connell re-entered the room holding 2 cups of coffee. His face was drawn, but there was steel in his posture. "They're pulling every digital record Marcus touched in the last 6 months," he said, handing Liana a cup. "Wire transfers, shell corporations, encrypted messaging platforms, real estate acquisitions. All of it." Liana took the coffee but didn't drink. "Will they believe me?" "They already do," O'Connell said. "And they're not the only ones." He handed Jordan a folder. Inside were printed screenshots from the footage Theo had saved. There was Liana being dragged toward the van. The fake staff badge one of the men had worn. A shot of Marcus's face, full profile, sneering into the camera. But what mattered more was on the final page. A still frame from one of the warehouse cameras, a side office, and inside it, racks of hard drives and filing cabinets. O'Connell tapped the image. "That room has records," he said. "If Marcus kept paper trails, and we think he did, they're in there." Jordan nodded. "So go get them." O'Connell looked tired. "We already did." Back at the warehouse, FBI forensic teams in hazmat suits combed through the wreckage. Burn marks from the flare incident still blackened the front corridor. Bullet holes in the floor. But the back room was untouched. And inside, everything Jordan feared, and everything Liana had warned about, waited to be catalogued. Hard drives, financial ledgers, photographs, dozens of images of women, some blurred, some candid, some obviously taken without consent, through windows, across parking lots, from rooftops. Each photo labeled, each with a name. Jordan's stomach twisted. "This wasn't about love," he whispered. "This was a collection." Liana stared at the wall of faces. Her own was there too. The same engagement photo they'd posted to friends just a week before the proposal. Smiling, innocent. She stepped closer, scanning the wall, her eyes narrowing. "That's Dana Redfield," she said, pointing at a woman in a red coat. She worked at the firm for 6 months. Quiet, smart. She left suddenly, no explanation. "And this one?" Jordan pointed to another. "Claire Saunders," Liana whispered. Same pattern. All of them. All were women he had access to. O'Connell, standing behind them, grimaced. "He's not just a criminal. He's a predator." One of the agents emerged from the side room holding a small Ziploc bag. Inside it was a burner phone, scratched, battery removed. "We'll try to trace the last SIM," the agent said. "Might give us a window into his contact list." "Was Theo in the system?" Jordan asked. The agent shook his head. "No name matches on payrolls, but we're still checking aliases. He may have used a fake ID to work here." Jordan looked to Liana. "You said he looked scared." "He was more than scared," she said. "He was trying to get out. I think he left something." She moved past the team and into the side hallway where she'd been kept in the cage. She walked slowly, scanning the corners, the beams, the old rafters. Then she found it, a loose board in the floor under the cot. She knelt and pried it free with the edge of her shoe. Inside was a plastic bag. She opened it carefully. Photos, USB sticks, a handwritten list, and a short note. "If you're reading this, I'm gone. I couldn't stop him. But maybe you can. There are others. He's not working alone. The man with the snake tattoo on his neck. He takes orders from someone bigger. I don't know who, but he always talks about the architect. Find him. Finish what I couldn't." Liana handed the note to O'Connell. He read it twice, then tucked it into a fresh evidence bag. "We thought Marcus was the head," he said, "but maybe he was just the face." By late afternoon, the press had caught wind of the case. Helicopters circled the bluff. Reporters camped outside the police station. Liana's phone, finally returned to her, buzzed with missed calls, texts, voicemails from friends, family, and strangers. Some asked if she was okay. Some wanted her story. Some already didn't believe her. "It's starting," she said, staring at the screen. Jordan nodded. "They'll twist it. They always do." O'Connell appeared in the doorway again, this time with a grim smile. "Marcus is talking." Jordan raised an eyebrow. "Cooperating?" "No," O'Connell said. Bragging. He sat down across from them. He said, and I quote, "I didn't build the house. I just lived in the rooms." Liana's face went still. "The architect," she whispered. O'Connell nodded. "We'll keep digging." He stood again, then looked at them both. "I think you should leave town. Not forever. Just for a while. Let things breathe. We'll contact you when it's safe." "Where would we go?" Jordan asked. "Someplace quiet," Liana answered, her voice suddenly soft. She reached into her coat and pulled out a small velvet pouch, the one Jordan had tucked into his jeans before they fled the hotel back in Queenstown. She opened it. Inside, the ring. Jordan stared at it. "You brought that with you?" She slid it onto her finger. It still fit perfectly. "I never left," she said. 3 weeks later, a new kind of fog rolled through Carmel by the sea, thinner, quieter, the kind that blanketed the ocean but not the soul. Liana stood barefoot on a stretch of beach as morning light crept up the cliffs, her engagement ring catching the gold of sunrise. The Pacific was colder here than the Oregon coast, but everything else felt warmer, softer, even the silence. Jordan approached from behind, 2 coffees in hand, his hoodie damp with sea mist. "I found a diner," he said, offering one of the cups. "No Wi-Fi, old jukebox, cash only. Feels like 1967 inside." Liana smiled as she took the coffee. "Perfect. Then no one can track us." "No one is," he said gently. "Not anymore." She didn't respond right away. Her eyes were on the tide, where a lone sandpiper darted along the edge of the surf, chasing foam and then fleeing it. "I still check over my shoulder," she admitted. "I do too." They stood in silence for a moment. Then she turned. "Do you think they'll ever find the architect?" Jordan shrugged. "O'Connell said the feds traced some offshore assets to shell companies linked to old military contractors. But that was a week ago. Nothing new since." "And Theo?" Jordan shook his head. "No sign. Not officially, anyway." But as he said it, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded napkin. Scrawled across it in looping handwriting were 4 words. "The house has cracks." It had arrived 2 days earlier, tucked into the newspaper at the corner cafe. No name, no return address. Liana read the note again. "He's still out there. He's trying to finish what he started." Jordan tucked the note back into his coat. "And we're not done either. But for now," she said, cutting him off with a nod, "we breathe." Later that day, they checked into a small oceanfront inn that smelled like lavender and old pine. The woman at the desk gave them matching keys and a hand-drawn map to the best clam chowder in town. Their room had no TV, no clocks, just a king-size bed, a fireplace, and windows that opened to salt air. Jordan sat on the edge of the bed, watching Liana as she moved through the room, carefully unzipping her suitcase and hanging up her coat. She moved slower now, more deliberately, like someone learning to inhabit her body again after weeks of flight. He remembered the first night she disappeared. How helpless he'd felt. Now, she was here. He cleared his throat. "So I've been thinking." She turned, eyebrow raised. "Technically," he continued, "you said yes to my proposal twice." She smirked. "Technically, I was under duress for one of them." "True," he said, "but I think we should make it official. Clean slate, no helicopters, no warehouses, just us." He pulled out a small velvet box from his backpack. Her eyes widened. "Jordan?" He opened it, not to reveal a ring, but a silver compass pendant. The inscription inside read, "You never left." "I figured rings already tried to kill us," he said. "Maybe this is better." Liana took it, tears springing to her eyes before she could stop them. "It's perfect." He fastened it around her neck. Then, finally, She let the tears fall, not from fear or pain, but relief. 2 days later, back in Portland, a raid made the national news. A quiet estate in the West Hills was stormed at dawn. DEA, FBI, and cybercrimes all converging. No resistance. But what they found shook even hardened agents. Computers preloaded with tracking software, false identities, photos of dozens of women marked with handwritten codes. A sealed room with soundproof walls. A chair in the center. Cameras. Lights. No names were released publicly. No suspect photos. Only one quote made it to the press. "This isn't the house. It's just a room." O'Connell called Jordan 2 hours later. "We found a connection," he said. The estate was leased by a foundation Marcus helped fund 5 years ago.
And the data matches Theo's handwriting. That napkin? He planted it. Is he safe? Jordan asked. We don't know, but he's moving fast, smarter than we gave him credit for. Do you think it's over? Not even close, O'Connell replied. But the first brick has fallen. Back in Carmel, Jordan and Liana walked along the cliffs, watching the sun dip into the sea. What if we wrote about it? She asked. Jordan glanced at her. You mean the whole story? Not just what happened to us, she said. Everything. The system, the gaps, the way it all hid behind money and influence, the women who vanished without anyone looking for them. Jordan took her hand. It'll be dangerous. I know, she said, but silence is how it spreads, and if we survived it, we have to speak. He squeezed her hand. Then we'll write it. Together. The wind rose around them, stronger, colder. But behind it, the tide was steady. And for the first time in a long time, so were they. Epilogue. 2 months later, a story went viral on independent news blogs. The Architect's House. How one woman escaped a global predation network disguised as wealth. No names, no photos, just the facts. And one final line, we are not victims, we are witnesses, and we're still watching.